Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and I've got another fun interview for you, and it's with Chris Stamey of the DBs. He's one of the co-founders of the DBs. He's also worked with Alex Chilton, Jody Stevens, Big Star Quartet, the Salt Collective, and helped out with a ton of other bands and records. And we had a great time chatting about his new album, Anything is Possible. And you're absolutely going to love it. It's got a variety of sounds, but the ones I've zeroed in on are where he sounds very much like the Beatles and especially like Paul McCartney, but in a totally different way. I think you'll get what I mean when you listen to the album, and it should be coming out this week, the week of this interview, and I encourage you to pick it up. You can go to the Boomerocity website where this interview would be embedded as well, and you can just click on the album cover and order it. And I do encourage you to order it to support both Chris and any other album I'm helping promote. I hope you buy it because we want to support our favorite musicians. So as you're listening and or watching this interview, please hit like if you don't mind and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it sure helps us out a lot. And we would like to keep doing this. So without any further ado, here is my first of what I hope are many more interviews to come with Chris Stamey. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Hello, Chris.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Just had some people shift on me the last minute on some interviews and was a minute late coming on here, so my apologies. I don't like keeping people waiting. So
No problem.
So where are you clicking in from?
Well, yeah, there's that. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina with family. We have a couple of sick relatives, and so there's been a lot going on. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which is where,
okay.
and I have a recording studio there, so that's my usual abode.
Well, it sounds like I'm just right over the hill from you. I'm in Sevierville, Tennessee. So we're practically neighbors. So
So I wanted to ask, are you recording?
yes, I am.
And
Yeah.
then you'll edit.
Correct. So
Okay.
if there's anything said that you don't want as part of this, just tell me. I'll make a note of it and I'll make sure it
Okay.
gets edited out.
I guess I should try to cut original sound from musicians on. I think that'll be better. Okay. But I hope you can hear me okay. I don't have any fancy mic up here in the mountains.
That's all right. No problem. People like the fact that I do a laid back type of setup without all the fancy glitzy. About as glitzy as I get are these virtual backgrounds here, so that
Very nice. I was thinking that took a lot of paste to get them up on your wall.
yeah, that's right. I had to steal a lot of album covers. So
So you'll be putting audio up, but not visual.
no, I'll do both. It's
I
fine.
didn't know that. So I have a kind of crazy. Let me try to get the background here a little better.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Like I said, I like the casuals, so you're good. You're good. So it turns out that I have interviewed at least 3 people you know or have worked with, and that's Peter Zolzapple. I put his interview up a few weeks ago. Will Rigby a few months ago, and Susan Cowsill a
Right.
year or 2 ago. So all 3 of those, plus I'm sure I've probably interviewed others you know and have worked with, and I've done close to 600 interviews so far in my 16 plus years of doing this. So so I'm sure there's others that where you know them better than I do. So, but first of all, Chris, I love this album. What I really take away from it is I don't know if you intended for it to be this way. I know the promo said kind of a 60s sound and such. That's what Howard had served it up as, and that's right in my lane, right? So, but man, I was catching that kind of a Beatles McCartney vibe to it, but yet completely different. So that's what caught my attention, and very classic and yet very fresh. And was that what you were aiming for? Is that the kind of sound you were trying to nail?
I love the way McCartney writes, and I credit his dad. Might have been named Jim. I'm not sure. Anyway, I credit his dad with a lot of that because McCartney grew up with a musician father, and he was
Mm-hmm.
hearing the Great American Songbook or the music of the mid mid century, last century,
Mm-hmm.
and so he was already familiar with a chord, a harmonic palette that I am very drawn to as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you listen to, um, I just am pedantic. You got to live with that. When you um, listen to Beatle records, um, you can hear McCartney singing standards, and you can also tell that they were kind of figuring out they'd learn what an augmented chord was, and then they'd write two songs with that. They'd learn how to use a diminished. They'd learn what a minor five was, and you could kind of track the Beatles' songwriting evolution through their increasing knowledge of how to connect the chords.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I really like about McCartney, and this is true of many of the writers I admire, Gershwin, Cole Porter, Harold Arlen, um, is that the melodies are being harmonized. So instead of you sit down with a chord progression and then you fit a shoehorn a melody into that, it's the melody hoisting the lyric, and then you harmonize that in interesting ways. It's really two ways that songwriters work. A lot of times, particularly if you're beginning, you'll have a guitar in your hand and you'll find a chord progression you like, and you have something that's on your mind or something you want to say, and you'll work those lyrics around the chords that are already under your fingers. But that's not really the approach that McCartney took, and it's not the way songwriting has primarily been for the last. We're in a weird time now, is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. And there are a lot of great songs being written with the same four chords. I just am not drawn to that at all anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost kind of like Solomon said thousands of years ago, nothing new under the sun, and yet there's all this new music coming out, and it's I still say there's new stuff coming out under the sun, and
I mean, I
interesting ways
remember
of
there
how
was
things are
a
put it.
songwriter uh, who about 25 years ago said, "Why do we need more songs? We have enough songs." I think his name was Bob Dylan, and yet we continue to be, receiving these Bob Dylan records.
And yeah, yeah. How many has he written since he said that? So, so how long did it take you to put this album together? I mean, from say from conception to out the door and ready for us to buy.
It was close to being done, or I thought it was close to being done a year ago around this time. Um, but um, I know there are insects that operate on like a 17-year cycle and a 7-year cycle. The DBs are kind of like those insects. It came time for the DBs to band together and make a tour, and some records were being reissued. And so I did stop, and it was kind of all for one and one for all for the latter part of last year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as I could, I got back and finished it. Most of it was done um, about this time last year, but I think the last 5%. I got a few more vocal tracks from the Lemon Twigs. We cut a Beach Boys cover called "Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My
Mm-hmm.
Shoulder," and I'm really glad I waited in the end
Why is that? For that?
because I think it became a better record.
Ah, very cool. What you've worked on a lot of stuff, Chris, and I'm sure there's just been you've got a ton of stories to tell about all the different kinds of music and records you've worked with, different experiences, changes in technology, all of that. What were some of the differences in putting this album together compared to everything else you've worked on over the years?
I think that people do, even kind, well-meaning people like yourself, ask me about songwriting, and I always feel like I've got to come up with something because the reality of it is you're in a certain kind of zone when you're writing a song. Maybe you already know how to play piano or how to play guitar or how to sing a little bit, but basically, when you are in that frame of mind, you're in it for a while. There's a song, then we're back in our day-to-day life, and it's kind of after the fact, explaining what happened. But is that? I hope it's not. I mean, basically, I'm saying the theory of the bicameral brain, where you're creative in your right brain, and then the left brain is trying to make sense of it, um, is one that I do subscribe to. And I know I started this record at one point thinking of it as being kind of croonerly. There's a song
Mm-hmm.
called "After All This Time" that is very traditional, and I'm really proud of it. But it's written in uh, as a song that other people could cover, you know. And I had a few like that, and then as I wrote more, I ended up doing the shows with the DBs. I did some shows with the Mitch Easter. I did some dates with the Lemon Twigs, and I kind of remembered guitars were fun, you know. I mean, a good old snare and backbeat going, and I was pulled in that direction. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that that is one of the things that really was fortuitous because this record has some yin and yang. It has some uh, rocking on it, and it's got some very tranquil moments as well.
Were there any surprises in it, especially if you had in mind going into it thinking one thing? Were there surprises that popped up and going, "Wow, I wasn't planning on this," and it nudged things maybe a little bit differently than you anticipated?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think any recording project I've been a part of is full of surprise and delusion and confusion. And what I about 10 years ago, I started writing songs on paper. It was taking me a long time to write a song, arrange a song, record a song, release a song. And I thought, I'm kind of picky, so I thought, well, I can write a lot more songs if all I do is write down the chords and the melody in notation in sheet music and put them on the side of the piano and move on to another one. For this record, it's the same thing. I had the pieces of paper, so that they were not surprises. What the musicians brought to it was often amazing. I mean, uh, I workshopped some of these songs with a group of folks called the Wild Honey Orchestra in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the folks from the Brian Wilson band, just a certain core of players there. And I connected with a guy named Probin Gregory, who is a multi instrumentalist with toured with Brian Wilson for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Still plays with Al Jardine now that Brian's not touring. And it was great to have Probin Gregory involved. Um, Sometimes multi instrumentalists mean you play electric guitar and bass, but he plays banjo, trombone, French horn, which is a completely different scene, trumpet, as well as fluid guitar. So got to give props to Probin. He
Mm-hmm.
would do very creative things, and then the other thing that surprised me. Well, I've told the story before, but I'm not sure I've told it to anybody in the public. Uh, I'm really a big fan of the Lemon Twigs. They're an extraordinary young band, and they
Mm-hmm.
also are trying to find new places to go harmonically, which I am very attracted to. But I thought, well, your brothers, you sound great. Um, Maybe you'll sing a high part on my record. And I sent them an arrangement from a keyboard that had like 12 different vocal parts for this kind of Beach Boys big thing we were going to
Yeah.
record. And I said, I know you guys are busy. Can you pick a high part here and maybe sing it? What I discovered is that they don't read emails very closely. So what they did was, well, this is by their own account. And so what they did is they did all 12 parts um, remotely in their studio in New York. And I was expecting to just get like, la, 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 whatever, And I got back, the Norman Tabernacle Choir, an incredible, I mean, it's not like the Beach Boys. It was amazing. If you listen to the first song on the record, I'd Be Lost Without You, when it
Hmm.
goes to the middle, unfortunately, there's still drums and guitars kind of covering up some of the layers. But um, once that happened, it changed the whole record. We were really drawn
Wow.
to this kind of choral harmony writing. And my friend Wes Show, who's a great arranger, got involved. And um, I mean, you probably heard stories about from other people about records taking zigzags, but I
Hmm.
definitely feel like this one zagged and zigged in a good way.
Did it wind up changing how you can perform a song like that? I mean, especially when there's so many harmonies involved, you can't bring the Mormon Tabernacle Choir around with you when you go on tour, right? So,
That is true. I mean, I'm playing in Los Angeles on July 13th with some of the Wild Honey people, and um, Vicky Peterson and John Cowsill
oh
are going
yeah,
to sing
yeah.
some with me, and Nelson Bragg, and of course, yeah, John Cowsill played and sang with Mike Love's Beach Boys
Yep.
for a long time. So
Great
you
guy
have the
too.
12 parts, but you can still do a lot with four singers.
Yeah.
For me, the songs existed once I wrote them on the piece of paper. So I don't mind if, I mean, I'll be playing in Memphis 2 days later with just cello and violin and flute and saxophone, and it'll sound totally different. But there's still the DNA of them is still on the two or three pieces of paper that I wrote.
Wow. Very cool. I'd love to hear the two different versions of that, just to grasp everything you're talking about there, because I'm not a musician. I took music theory. I dinked
Ah,
around on the guitar as a kid and on the piano, but I was never devoted to it, so I never developed, but I love music. I love the business of music when it's done right. But to hear the differences, I could fully appreciate hearing that just between the two versions of it. But and in different venues even, and watching the crowd vibe, with it in different ways. Do you find that happening when you go from one kind of performance of a song like that to another?
I'm always hoping that if it if the sounds make me feel the music deeply, that communicates.
Yeah.
If I'm particularly if I'm singing, and um, but I'm not like Miles Davis turning his back on the audience, but I do tend to focus on what's happening on stage.
Right.
Um, I don't. I admire people who are approach it like they're leading a kindergarten class where it's a lot of interaction back and forth and everybody
Hmm.
jumps around. But that isn't my gift. I try to make the it work with the notes.
Hmm. Hmm. That makes sense. So
You can probably tell this is the first interview I've done.
that's
So
all right. No, I think
I mean,
it's
for this record,
for this right. Yeah.
it's good that you're such a patient listener
Well,
because
no,
I'm blathering a
no.
little bit.
Well, no. Boy, you should hear some of my others where we've gone on for 2 hours. But it was. But I'm here to listen and learn. Because I'm a fan. I'm not a professional. Except I'm a professional chatter. I like to just talk with people and hear what they have to say, and that's what's important to me.
Were there particular songs you that struck you that you'd like to ask about, or was it more
Yeah,
the?
let me pull that up real quick because I didn't have that in front of me here. Gosh, where? Oh, it's on a stream. Hold on there. There was one. Well, the first one, of course, that we just talked about, but I think it was in a lonely place. That kind of struck me. What was that song all about?
Um, Mostly, I write songs that I want to sing, but
Hmm.
sometimes you don't get to pick. And I was writing that one thinking that, well, this would be great for Roy Orbison. I mean, that was unlikely since he's no longer with us. But
Right,
I was thinking
right.
about Roy Orbison with that one. But the real genesis of it, I love that movie, the movie, the Humphrey Bogart movie In a Lonely Place. It's
Hmm.
so dismal and and as noir as you can be. And so it's another thing that sometimes I try to write soundtracks for movies that already exist. I thought I would. There's a point in that movie, and it's so cheesy, and it's just kind of perfect, where there's a voiceover, and it's something like, uh, uh, let's see, "You came, and my life began. You left, and it ended." And it's delivered by Humphrey Bogart. And I know it was a contentious part of the script, but that's the second verse of the song, pretty much.
Kind of a Mickey Spillane feel to it or something,
Uh,
right? Yeah.
so those would be my thoughts on that one. And I thought many times maybe this goes on too long. If Roy Orbison was doing it, maybe it would be 2.5 minutes. But in the end, I ended up keeping the guitar solo.
Cool. The so what I'm about to I don't want to I want to be clear on this. I'm not asking which song is your favorite because that's like asking you to pick your favorite
Oh
child,
no,
but
I know. I got one. Go ahead then.
which song which song would be the calling card you would point to for the rest of the record, saying, "Hey, if you like this, you're going to get and maybe even love the rest of the record."
Well, I think the easiest one to like immediately, particularly if you like rock music, is uh, the title track, Anything is Possible. The
Yeah,
catch
yeah.
is it's the least like anything else on the record. It's me and Mitch Easter kind of having a great time. Mitch is playing drums, and it's like what we used to do in high school a little bit. And of
Hmm.
course, I mean, it's got Pat Sansone and the Lemon Twigs singing these harmonies, so it does connect. Um, so I guess I would say I'd be lost without you. It's a little more, it's a little slower, but I think that's a good. You're talking about what would be a gateway drug, right?
Yeah, I'm going to use that line. I like that. A gateway drug. I I like that. I try
Yeah.
to find different ways to ask the same question. That would do it right there.
I mean, if you had the courage to ask me what my favorite song was, I would have said "When My Ship Comes In."
Why is
Um,
that?
Particularly proud of that one. Um, it's in the style I think of World War II songs like "I'll Be Seeing You If Only in My Dreams" or "I'll Be Home for Christmas,"
Yeah,
where couples were separated by the war and by the ocean and by a complete lack of communication.
yeah,
And that seemed to speak to our confusing times to me. But when my ship comes in, has some things in it harmonically I think work really great. And I'm not even sure how they work. Um, it as it modulates from E flat to G flat in an unusual way, I think. And it's got some things I learned from Carole King in it. I just find it to be, or maybe it's because it's a waltz. I don't know why. I particularly love that one.
good. I don't know. When I was a kid, I was always a sucker for the slow dance because that was the only way I was going to be able to dance with a girl that I would have a crush on, and during high school. So I had to go for the slow stuff for the dancing. But if I
Maybe that's
wanted to, yeah, there you go. You hold the girl close. But I didn't write this down. But as you were talking, you kind of went back in time a little bit and that whole thing. What what has been for you the biggest changes you've seen in the music business and especially in recording all that? I know the technology's changed, but taken as a whole, what would you say have been, or maybe put a different way, what have been the best and worst changes in this business that you've had to deal with?
well, I mean, I think sometimes they're the same thing. When I grew up, there were no guitar tuners, so you couldn't really get on stage unless you could hear well enough to tune your guitar, which is,
Yeah,
uh, and then machine tuning has led us to a world where in what's called equal temperament. A piano is an equal temperament, but it means everything is out of tune. Everything is almost in tune. And this continued with the vocal tuning things. All of a sudden, everything was on the grid pitch wise, but it was not actually in tune. The actual notes that a choir would sing, a string quartet would play, would be the actual frequencies of the pitches would be a little different. There's a so I would say that's one of them. In the same way, I remember when multi-track recording came in. Prior to that, we had mono, we had 3 track, which was very usable. We had 4 track, and even up to 8 track, you're still pretty much uh, capturing a performance of a few players for the most part. Um, the world learned how to record multi-track when it arrived in 69, 70, but it took about 15 years. The records got to sound generally pretty horrible once you had all those tracks. You'd
yeah,
have all these drum microphones that were causing phase problems. So everything became very blurry with all the tracks. You would have performances where people weren't looking at each other anymore. So that'd be
yeah.
another one. And then I also saw it move from like rock and roll chords. A song might have 3 or 4 chords, to pretty interesting harmonic things going on, and everybody feeling like they needed to evolve, continually improve their craft. It was kind of an assumption that you've learned to play guitar up to a certain point, but you're going to continue to learn more about the instrument. Um, and now there's so much promotion to do and so much social media to do. It's really cut into that lonely time in your bedroom with the guitar, in my view. Um, if you go to Wikipedia and put in, I think it's 4 chords or 4 chord songs, it's mind blowing how many songs use those same 4 chords. They're different than the old rock and roll chords, like maybe 6 4 5 1 or some combination of that. But it's become at the high level of hit makers. Um, I don't want to call out anybody, but it's become an assumption that you only use those chords. That's what you start with. You walk into the room, and it's those 4 chords. And what else can I gripe about? You're turning me
Hey,
into a granddad.
hey, how about AI in music? Any of that concern you?
I actually have not heard it enough or experienced it enough. I mean, I'm more used to what's happening in text. The pictures where people have 6 fingers. I mean, it may. I guess it might it threaten my income. I don't know, but will it change the way my brain works when it goes and it's in the mode of, or maybe it's right brain, right? Uh, and you're in the mode of writing music. I don't think AI is going to do much about that.
Yeah, yeah. I hope, as I've told others of your peers, what I hope happens is that it does a better, it brings intelligence into tracking actual play and actual pay
Hmm,
so that as it goes out and crawls the ether and it hears, it accesses all the streaming,
hmm,
place platforms and radio and all that kind of stuff. And it assimilates and says, all right, here's what took place this month.
hmm.
And here's who gets paid from it. I would love to see that happen.
Right.
So there's a more honest and lucrative, hopefully, distribution of funds. Do I think that'll happen? Only if the powers that be want it to. But to me, you do that and you go to a dynamic commission structure of, I subscribe to Apple Music.
Hmm.
And so if I spend 1 month only listening to one artist and to oversimplify things, and that artist gets any of the royalty money that's ever paid because he wrote, recorded, so on and so forth, then whatever that portion of that $17 I pay to Apple every month goes to an artist, then that one artist would get that portion for that month. The next month, if I listen to 10 different artists throughout
Right.
the month, then it gets, revectored that way. And that's the kind of things I think could help make streaming less of a bitter pill for artists because they're getting fractions of a penny on anything paid. But if you could get into more of that dynamic structure so that it ebb and flows with listening habits of everybody, and maybe not have to have a minimum. And that's what the other thing I don't understand. These streaming platforms wanting to pay you guys only if you crest a certain amount of streams,
Right.
but yet I can still get a 35-cent check in the mail from somebody that felt like they owed me 35 cents because I overpaid on a bill. Just doesn't make sense. Let's put some common sense into this stuff. And you get paid online anyway, so nobody's looking a stamp and sealing the envelope and writing the check. They can just distribute it as need be. And I know there's a lot more technology there that helps you guys in that area. Platforms that distribute to whoever you've agreed to think for things to be. I'm reading about that all the time, but I would love to see you guys get the money you deserve.
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it.
There's some corollaries to what you're saying that are interesting. You're talking about streaming, and we're talking about songwriting. Um, it's kind of intros are now much shorter, and you get to the core. You need to get to the chorus much quicker if you're thinking commercially. I'm not. I don't really think that way, and I've got a lot of long intros and whatever. But um, if you don't keep a listener going for, I don't know if it's 30 seconds or a minute, it doesn't count as a stream.
Yeah.
So it changes the actual arranging and writing of the music. You've got to front load it more. You've got to be a little more what in journalism is called inverted pyramid, or you don't
Yeah.
get paid for streaming. Um, that's one thing. The other, from my you know many ancient and decrepit years, I can remember what uh, songwriting was like before bands. It was more solo performers, and they were using songwriters, and they maybe had a talent for singing or performing. And so there were kind of two folks at work. I mean, they would be selecting songs that were great songs, often
Mm-hmm.
cutting them and having hits. And then when bands started going, and there's a one guy in the band who writes a song, you know, the band's kind of a success. And that what guy writes a song, he's driving the limo. I mean, he's riding in a limo, and everybody else still has their, uh, you know, what their Chevy, and they want to write songs too. But they haven't maybe they've been working on being a great drummer for a long time, haven't necessarily been working on being a great songwriter. So once and at that point in the history, you were making money from the sales of the records. So if the record cost $100,000 and didn't make $100,000, you were not getting any more money from that record. The band might have gotten an advance. However, if it sold 50,000 copies and the band still isn't in the black, the songwriter is still getting paid for those 50,000 copies.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and once everybody kind of figured that out, I have to say I feel like there were a lot more mediocre songs out there. Everybody
Yeah.
wanted to be a songwriter. Um, I mean, maybe this is not necessarily um, crucial to the way to where we are today and what we're talking about, but um, it historically it's a change. And in the big picture, being able to win the lottery and make $1 billion from music is great, but it's an anomaly. Musicians were getting paid nothing most of human history. It was all for love. It was all on the porch. It was all the
Hmm.
family after dinner playing sheet music from there, you know. I mean, I would like to be paid. It's not been fun to be poor all my life, but you know, it's a great joy to write music.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, songwriting, I think a lot of fans don't realize this, Chris, is that, and when they want to copy something for free or whatever, they don't realize they're taking food out of people's mouths. And,
Mm.
and for something that this, to me, this is the weird tension point on this, is that they want to steal something that means so much to them here because they enjoy it for whatever reason. It's a love song or it's something that helps them get moving or whatever. It means something to them. It's a benchmark on the soundtrack of their life. And if they don't stop and think, if it's important enough for them because of that, how much more it would be to the person who created it. And to me, you want to pay that person. You want to, I mean, but people aren't thinking of it because we've become so entitled in this society, I think, is a lot of that problem. Plus, there's just a ton of Sam Andrew from Big Brother and the Holding Company told me when I first launched this thing, and he was one of my first interviews. He said, "Randy," he goes, "we created those sounds." He goes, "Now you have schools cranking out 500 graduates a year who can play Hendrix as well as Hendrix." He goes, "Everything," in essence, this wasn't his words, but in essence, things have become so commoditized and so overabundant that as a consumer, we find ourselves valuing things less than we used to. That's why I do what I do, though, so we can listen and enjoy and bring back that memory of days gone by, and then what are those people that created that doing today, so we can still enjoy some new stuff that brings a smile to our face and hopefully support the musicians we love.
Well, thank you. I mean,
I hope it helps.
yeah, if I thought about it as deeply as you have, I could get pretty ticked off. But the reality of it is, there's such an abundance of stuff to really tick me off these days that that's just one
Same here.
piece of it. I mean, good grief, what you know. And I don't know when this would come out, but I read something today where Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen are going to play a concert across from the White House in a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
I hope that happens. I do like that Springsteen has been standing up
Hmm.
for things that should be said.
Hmm. Well, it's that. I mean, that's what made rock and roll really when it come right down to it. The protest songs, For me, listening to old rock and roll, I think Kent State, even though I was probably too young to fully appreciate what was going on, I was on the tail end of the baby boomer boom. I about to turn 66. So it's, the older brothers and sisters were more into that protest stuff than I was at the time. But retrospectively, I could go back and enjoy that kind of music, and it does kind of peg me back to then. And I do think that generationally, that generation, well, not so much Bruce, but maybe Taylor and her sycophants would maybe get a clue what brought us here if they really wanted to try to affect change and try to make the world a truly better place and get out there and do something, and not just parrot things that have been spoon fed to them. Know what you're talking about and what's the downstream effects of those things. You know, I am concerned about that generation, to be truthful with you. I just don't think we're cranking out people that have some good thought processes to really think through what they're standing for. I see too much contradiction in what people say they feel and stand for, that turn right around and contradict themselves. Be consistent. Make sure that when you stand for something, you don't change your mind when the shoe's on someone else's foot and you just don't like the foot that it's on. No, let's be consistent here, because long term that gives everybody a positive benefit instead of a ever changing negative one, in my mind. So, but I'm 66. What do I know? Yeah. So, well, hey, what's on your radar for the rest of the year? You got this album coming out. It hasn't landed yet, right? It's coming out when?
July 11th. I think that as one does, there's some singles coming out ahead of time.
Right.
But yeah, it comes out in July. Let's see. I'm in this band called the Big Star Quintet, which is based
Mm-hmm.
around Jody Stevens, the drummer for the band Big Star.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Mills and Pat Sansone from Wilco, and John Auer from the later version of Big Star, and I have been doing a lot of things related to that music, and we're continuing to do a few shows. So, um, and and that's great. They're great folks, and Jody's amazing, and um, we've had a lot of great evenings around the world, great audiences for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oh, I'm finishing up a record. Hopefully, I'll finish it this weekend. It won't come out till the fall, but it's an interesting thing called the Salt Collective. Um,
Hmm.
there's a French guitarist named Stéphane Chouk, and some French musicians who play with him, who have joined together with myself and Mitch Easter, Gene Holder from the DBs, Matthew Cause from Nada Surf, um, and we write songs and invite different people to sing them. I guess a new record. Well, I've been writing some with Andy Partridge, who was in the band XTC,
Mm-hmm.
and Matthew Cause is involved. Mike Mills again. Jason Faulkner from Jellyfish, who he plays with Beck now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be forgetting people. A singer named Lynn Blakey, was in Let's Active. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Amy Mann has done a number of really great things. We have a duet,
Mm-hmm.
and she sings a great song on there. Um, so it's a big project that, again, it's a bunch of people who enjoy being in the same room with each other, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and sometimes there's a song that's kind of like "In the Court of the Crimson King" by King Crimson.
Yeah.
Um, there are some things that maybe have flavors of XTC. Um, it's super cool.
Oh, cool.
So that's what I'm
Well,
working
it
on
gets
this weekend.
well when that gets close to coming out, maybe you and one or two, three of the other bandmates want to do a group one of these things, let's talk about that album. I think that'd be fun.
Okay. I
And
mean,
just,
actually, the Salt Collective have an EP coming out tomorrow. Ah!
ah.
Which is very cool. It's got one song that was a collaboration with Scott Miller from Game Theory right before he died,
hmm
and everything else is new and current. The Lemon Twigs are on it, doing a cover of "I Want to Tell You," which is a George Harrison song on Revolver.
hmm
I've got a tune on it. Um, Mitch Easter has a great, very spooky Sid Barrett like song on it that I
Mm.
just love. So that's tomorrow. I mean,
Wow.
tomorrow meaning in the past for the
Right.
podcast. So it's
That
not
little
your
time warp
tomorrow.
there.
It's my tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll mess with their minds. So, but yeah, let's do some chatter on some of this stuff downstream because I think people want to hear it. You know, your fans would want to hear it, and I want to do my part. I mean, I'm not Rolling Stone magazine size wise. I would like to have their numbers, just not the way they do things. And so, I do my part to get the word out around the world, and the following's growing every day. I'm proud of that. So, I'll do my part, and you get another bunch of people like me doing what I do out there as well. Pretty soon, you got some pretty good numbers adding up, and I think that's a good thing for you. So,
Well,
we
thank you.
let's do that. Well, Chris, this has been a lot of fun. I look forward to hearing great things about this album as it rolls out and people become more and more aware. I'll have a link to it on my website when this posts. I'm sure Howard will want me to post this a little closer to when the album drops. But on the website, I'll have this video. If you have any music video tied to the album, I'll put that or an EPK or whatever you have going on that. And then, of
There's a
course,
music
the
video
album.
already for the first song.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'll make sure to include that on the web page on my website, which is
Great.
boomerocity.com, when this all posts. And then the album cover will be clickable and they can kick out to Amazon or your website or wherever you guys want me to put it at to where they can buy the album instead of just stream it. So,
It occurs to me, and this would mean you have to edit, but um, I already said that I was playing in LA on July 11th. Should I say something about the New York show I'm doing on July 10th? That you,
yeah, go right ahead. Go right
I mean,
ahead.
it doesn't work to do the cut. You don't have to. But um, so I'm doing the show in July 13 in LA, but I'm also playing with a great group and different arrangements in New York on July 10 at City Winery.
Hmm,
Playing with Andy Burton, who some of you might know is keyboard player for John Mayer and
right.
for Rufus Wainwright. Great
hmm
player. My old friend Dave Schramm on guitar, who has played a lot with Yola Tango. Um, uh, Jeremy Chatsky from Losers Lounge and Bruce Springsteen. Um, Really great session drummer from New York named Kenny Soul.
hmm
And those guys play together a lot and have played with me a lot. And it's a little bit of a reunion gig, but it's a record release show.
Oh, very fun. Gosh, I wish I could make that. That would be cool. But well, man, if you make it down this way, I'm outside of Knoxville, as you know. So if you're going to be around the area, give me a heads up, and I'll swing by and catch your gig. That'd be fun to meet you in
Yeah,
person.
so I'm in Nashville on, I'm going to say it's July 21st.
Okay.
Um, that's pretty far from Knoxville.
4 hours is all. I like windshield time, but if I can, I'm my dad's caregiver, so I would have if I
Yeah.
can make arrangements for somebody to sit with him, I'd do an overnighter over there just to catch the gig and sleep in the
Well,
next
the
morning.
night
But
before, I'm playing with the Big Star Quintet um, at a at the basement.
oh yeah,
That
yeah,
show might be close to sold out, but we could probably get you in. And
okay.
then that's on the 20th, and then the 21st, I'm doing a show with my just acoustic guitar, but with my friend Jen Gunderman, who she's in the A team in Nashville session players. She's an
Yeah.
amazing keyboard player. You see her with on all the award shows and everything, and we're old
Yeah.
friends.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Well, hey, my email address is very simple to know. It's Randy, Randy, at boomerocity.com. Drop me a note and I don't send junk mail or anything like that. I'm very sparse with my emailing. I probably should be more of a email marketeer than I am, but I kind of like the organic approach to things. But keep me posted, especially when this big album comes out. Let's do it. Let's set up a chat to support that, and I'll do my best to catch the Nashville gigs you got going. And then if you have something going on in Knoxville or Chattanooga, or I even make it over to the Carolinas once in a while, so we
Ah,
can. I'll maybe I can drop in and catch something going on there. But let's stay in touch and
is the road
just do
working
some more
now
of
around
these.
the mountains?
Pardon me.
Can you drive through the mountains?
Oh yeah, I live in the mountains. I mean,
No, I mean
I,
to get from Tennessee to North Carolina for a while, 40 was closed, right?
oh no, they've got it. They've opened up. I think there's two lanes, one going each way as they keep building that and repairing 40. And boy, when you see that mess, it's astonishing. You don't realize how Interstate 40 was built until you see the damage done to it. But they're doing an amazing job. I saw it a while back, and they're making good progress on there, but it's a ways away before they get it all the way 100% back. But yeah, I would just encourage you to use your GPS to tell you which way to go if you're going to drive that, because sometimes if heavy long weekend traffic or something might be problematic there. But but yeah, it's drivable now. It's just not very wide yet. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you go. Thank you
All
so
right, my
much.
friend. Thanks a lot and stay safe. Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.